With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
On this episode of Into the Fray, I welcome back Shanna and Debbie for an update show. And we actually have a Discord room for patrons, and it can be a very active place. We get into a lot of discussions on a lot of different subjects. And I know that I've missed a lot as of late, especially coming from Debbie's side, because and then she and Shanna would discuss things. And there was some similarities between, I should say, let me correct that, some more similarities found out between these two ladies. Now, Shanna was on for episodes 368 and 369 titled Ancient and Powerful Part 1 and 2, and Debbie was on, and this is main episodes, by the way. I didn't even try to go in and see where you guys popped into some of the extra bonus Patreon episodes. It's like so many at this point that we've had. And Debbie was on main for 311, 340, and 426 for the Elemental Part 1, 2, and 3. And then, of course, I featured you two plus a couple of other ladies for like one of the anomalies talk, right? For when anomalous events converge, for Ryan Sprague's online conference that he did, because there was just so many similarities between several of you. But we're doing this update show today because of the fact that you guys have uncovered even more. And without, of course, attempting to do a 12-hour marathon show and have you guys retell everything, just before I say thank you officially for coming back on with me and we dive in, I wanted to give just a quick bullet point list snapshot of why we're even doing this in the first place. So for Shanna, shadow people, classic ghost activity, demonic type activity, humanoid creatures, UFOs, physical interactions, and at times poor health comes into play. And that, by the way, comes into play for other people that are not on this call as well. For Debbie, elementals, predator type beings, black masses, shadow people, classic ghost activity, interactive shadow animals. Very interactive, by the way, even with her own animals inside the house, UFOs, physical interactions, and again, health can be poor at times. Now, we're not assuming or saying, especially in the last case, that has anything to do with anything. We're just saying that it is interesting because we have no way of proving that, right? But it is something to at least take note of. So, Shanna and Debbie, welcome back. So, I don't even quite know where to start. And I think it's a good thing that I'll come into the Discord and I'll try to catch up. Sometimes it's impossible to do so because it gets lively in there, which is wonderful. I am not aware of everything that you guys have spoken about, which plays in well to the way that I like to run my show and have information prior to starting to record with folks. So I don't even know where you guys wanted to start, how much you feel like we need to talk about things that have happened before to at least paint a picture of where we're going. But I'll have you guys take it away, whoever wanted to start here.
It doesn't matter. If Debbie wants to, that's fine.
Okay, I don't mind starting. I feel like there is, it appears to be that there is more and more happening, and a greater variety. And I appear to be more and more connected and can connect with other people. And I don't know what's triggered this off or how it works. I don't know the full thing about anything. And then there are different new things happening and joining in, completely interconnected, I think. So there's still been a lot more FRAY type interaction. We have ghosts in the house and where I work. The house elf is still active, and it appears as both a black cat and a tabby cat, since we've got both. There has been UFOs, definitely. Entities that I don't know what you would call. And this is just, I keep contemporaneous notes, just bullet points. And I was just reading back through them just before the interview. And I only got back as far as September last year. And there were, pages and pages of the stuff. That's where I think, I just don't know. I don't know what's happening. And that's why I think Discord and this is really helps, because it helps to bring forward information from other people to see what's happening. I think we are with Shanna when we've been talking, and she'll say, something like, oh, I've had issues with my health, and we've had the same sort of health things go on.
Yes.
And then we had a couple of weeks ago, we were just talking, wasn't it? Is it okay if I say about your father?
Absolutely, yeah.
So this was the thing so you were talking about your father, and your father had died, and my father had died. And the day we actually spoke, I had the most unusual thing happen. So 2 days a week, I work from home, and I was just working from home, and I was ploughing through this really long document, one of those where it's 30 pages, and the thing they really want you to do or say, the information they want to get across is probably in the last sentence, and it could have easily been an email. So I was just ploughing through this thing, just really like boring, and I was doodling while I was ploughing through it, and all of a sudden the doodle got really, really harsh, and then there was this roaring sound in my head, and a voice, shout, like this, and then angry, and then sorry, and it was my father. And my father died way over a decade ago, and when he died, he had dementia. So I have no idea whether it was just frustration, which was why I was so angry. I thought, oh, this has never happened before. And this is what I mean about things happening which have never ever happened before. So I have no idea what I'm doing most of the time. Or any of the time. So I just lit a candle, said that I would tell the rest of the family that he was okay, and that anything he was sorry about we would forgive, and it was time to go. And I could not only see him, but I could see his grandfather and his brother waiting for him. And this is like 10:30 in the morning. It's like really random things happening. And then we happened to speak that afternoon, and you said you'd had some things with your dad, and it was just like, that's really weird synchrony. And I'll email you a picture of the doodle, the piece of paper, and you can see I'm doodling, and then this really sort of like almost like automatic writing by mistake, really. Because I wasn't paying any attention to what I was doing. So that's one of the things that's happened recently. Shanna, what do you think about that?
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed is that I feel compelled to go into Discord and talk to Debbie a whole lot. And usually when I do, it's because we're experiencing the same, basically the same thing at the same time, or some sort of something that's connected. The health thing really, I mean, if I didn't have any confirmation at that point that something was going on, I had it then, because it was just so specific and so close in time. And just, with our fathers, of course, we've talked about childhood trauma and things like that. I didn't have the best relationship with my father. 3 weeks prior to his death, it got kind of crazy around here. The activity really picked up, and I'd had a dream back in December. I don't know if this is related to anything, but except that when Debbie talked about kind of having the dream, and her father contacting her. I don't know if this is connected or not, but back in December, I had this really weird, I guess you would call it dream, but it didn't feel like a dream. Jim had actually gotten up. I was still in bed. I had drifted off back to sleep. It only took about 10 minutes. I had this extremely vivid, realistic, I guess you would say dream, I don't know what it was, of this being, this, I don't know what to call it other than a humanoid type being. Extremely lanky, sandy hair, really sharp, jagged teeth, like an elongated face, really high cheekbones. And I remember that I was actually sitting in the bedroom of the house and with my back up against the closet door where we have a lot of activity in the bedroom. And I hear outside of the house this conversation amongst this group of people. I don't know what they were, and they were talking about how disgusting and repulsive this thing is, and they are basically casting it out of the group. And then all of a sudden it winds up in front of me. It's sitting directly across from me at the table, and for some reason I just look at it and I say, "What's wrong with you?" I mean, I almost feel like I'm at teaching again, except I wouldn't have been that mean or rude, but it was agitated. It looked like something was wrong. It didn't, at that point, it had not opened its mouth. And I couldn't make out exactly what it said in answer, but it either sounded like that it said harass or harass. And I think Roy had talked with me about it, and he could actually do it. He actually said it exactly with the same accent and everything, exactly the way that it said it, and it gave me the chills. But it was about the time that I asked it, what's wrong with you? It said its name, whatever it was doing, and its mouth opened, and it showed this mouth full of just jagged teeth. Very, very beady eyes. And it got up and it threatened me. It basically came toward me in a threatening manner. This is so insane, but it was wielding a cross backwards, and I can remember jumping back from it. And then I get extreme. Debbie, you're gonna love this one because I got extremely aggressive, and then I lunged to attack it. And I draw my inspiration from Debbie. But I lunged toward it, and then all of a sudden we were outside of this house, except this house was a house that Jim lived in when he was a child, and it was haunted. And we were going around the backside. I don't really know how that I could see the outside of that house, because obviously I was never in it. I was never around it, but I did recognize the outside of the house. We walked past, I was following this thing. We walked past 3 dead bushes around the back of the house, and there were three little birds to the left, and Shannon knows how much I love birds, and my urge was to pick the birds up, but something said, "Don't touch them." And whatever this was went up the stairs back into the house, and after that it stopped. But I woke up after that, and it was so real, so vivid to me that I basically jumped in the living room, and I told Jim, I said, this is crazy. I don't know what this is, but it feels real. It's almost like I was in between a dream and being awake. But I had actually drawn a sketch of this thing. Now here's how that ties in to now. I had a dream. I can't remember exactly what it was. I think I had talked to Debbie about it in Discord. So I can't place exactly when it was, but I think it was around about the time that Debbie had the dream about her father. I had a dream about my father, but it was my father, but it was not my father. It was in the form of this thing that I had just talked about in the dream. The hair was a little darker. I knew it was my father, but it was not my father. It was that humanoid type, whatever that was. Same feeling. I didn't have any interaction, but it was the same thing. And when Debbie said that she had that dream about her father, had that interaction, I can't remember exactly when I did, but that kind of kind of freaked me out.
Shanna, a few things about that before you go on to another subject, or we just completely move on from this.
I've
Is
something amazing.
What's that?
I've got something amazing which you're not going to believe, which neither of you have heard about.
All right, you go first then. My stuff can wait.
Okay, number one, it wasn't a dream about my father. He was actually there in front of me.
I'm sorry.
So no. He was actually there in front of me, which made it so funny. But number two, what you are, and you will not know this, no one will know this, but I grew up in a haunted house. And it had very much the same sort of entity in.
Oh.
And that entity has haunted mine and my younger sister's dreams for decades. Until when did you have that dream?
The very first dream, I can actually, if you can believe it or not, I actually took notes. I think it was in December. I had actually drawn a sketch. I think that I had sent it to Shannon. Since then, though, it has given me the creeps so bad that I threw away the sketch. I don't have it anymore.
I don't blame you. So around about December, I'd had enough. So this thing, it would go through waves where it would really try and invade my dreams and really be scary and try and get me to go back into the house in my dream, which really wasn't a dream. And I'd had enough. And so the next time it tried to do that, I imagined putting it in a cage of pure white light, which really shut it up. It couldn't get out from behind the light. And then, because it sort of was making a noise and trying to get out, even though it couldn't, because no, you can't get out from there. I called down, I want some help from above and put a cage around this and stop it coming out. And it was just making a noise. So I then imagined, do you know what I mean? When you put like a blanket over a budgie cage or a parrot cage?
Yes.
Yeah. So I imagined putting a blanket of white light over the entire childhood house. And it hasn't disturbed me since.
Wow. That is, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Now, Debbie, you're saying that almost to a T, the exact description, the sandy blonde hair, the sharp teeth, that's exactly the same type of entity that you are describing that Shanna just mentioned.
Yep.
Wow.
Hooked nose, extremely hooked. I mean, the face was just like grotesque in a way, but it still looked enough like a human until it opened its mouth.
It used to be upstairs in the dream, and it used to try and get you into the house.
Yeah, that was the part of that dream, was it was trying to get me to go into this house that was a haunted house that Jim was in when he was younger. It wanted me to follow it up the steps of that house, and I would not do it. And that's where it all ended.
Yeah.
That is just, no, I had no
What in the world just happened? Holy
Mm.
smokes.
Yeah, that is just, yeah.
But ever since you did this blanket of white light, Debbie, it seems to have abated.
It tries. It's abated a lot. It tries every so often to sort of like, almost like let me out. No, just go away. So it's stuck in there. It can't get out. If you have another dream like that, just imagine the whole thing. Call down some white lights and help from God, whatever, and just put it in something it can't get out of.
I've not had one other than the one that it was my father. I mean, it just was in that shell.
Mhm.
except the hair was his color. But I have not had anything since then.
Shanna,
I
is
haven't.
is it okay to say that your father was just not a good person? We don't need to really go into it, but can we just go
Oh,
ahead and say that?
absolutely. Yeah. He was not a good person. That if you remember the owl incident, but which really freaks me out considering all the owl talk about on
Right.
Discord. Yeah, he was not a very good person. Uh, Wicked, and I don't mind saying it now. So,
Can I just say that, considering also that this entity or person or whatever it is, it was holding this backwards cross, and then Debbie mentions, you have to call from a power from above, something from above, or from God, maybe whatever even that means to you. I find it interesting that in this quote unquote dream, that there was 3 dead bushes and 3 birds.
mhm.
And we go off of this, you hear the Holy Trinity, or the mocking of the Holy Trinity, right? And then now you have this idea of 3s in this vision or this dream, or this, maybe you were astral projecting in some form or fashion. Did Roy think that it was saying Harris, or that it was saying harass? If it was saying Harris, does that tie into anything?
He oh, I wish you could hear him do it because it's bone chilling the way that he does it. I'm going to try to do it the way that he did. I don't know whether I can't remember whether he thought that it was its name. He thinks that it is related to possibly an elf entity of some sort. I don't know if Debbie might feel the same thing, but he thinks that it was some sort of an elf type entity and not a good one. But if I don't think that I can do it, but should you ever have the opportunity, ask Roy to do that because he did it exactly the way that it sounded, which completely freaked me out all over again.
But the name, but we're not sure either way what it was actually saying. And if it was, so the name, if it was Harris, that's not applicable for either one of you in any
Well,
way, shape, or form.
and
No.
I had made a connection. I don't know if it's correct or not. I think that I had talked to you about it. I had actually talked to Keith the prior weekend, and he was talking about the Conjuring House at Harrisville. And he had told me that he has picked up one entity the last several years that follows him everywhere. And he thinks that's where that he got that from. But also, I think of I think the way that Roy pronounced it, it was more of harass, because I asked the name. I suppose that the name could have been harass. Why not? I mean, that's what they do. Could it have been a demon that's its particular job? Is they all harass you, but maybe that was its favorite job.
Right.
But I just don't know. All I can say is that it was extremely real, very vivid. And I can still right now think I can recall the details. And I never do that with a dream. I mean, if I do dream, I don't really dream that often. But as far as the 3 birds and the bushes, that was what came to my mind, the Trinity. And I don't know what the significance of it was, but one of the birds was really yellow, bright yellow. And I just wanted to get to them so desperately. I knew they were sick. Something had told me. And specifically, I know specifically what it was, which is why I wanted to get to the birds, but something said, don't touch them. Don't touch them. But it did want me to follow it up into the back of the house. That's exactly, and it ended there. So
So not touching them makes you think of the FRAY, doesn't it? Actually, so accepting anything or drinking anything, yeah.
Absolutely.
And if Roy's saying it's a FRAY type thing, that would link into why it's don't pick up, don't take anything, don't touch anything. I never thought it was demonic. I just think, and it could also never leave the house, which is why it was trying to get you back in. But I completely agree that the dreams were really, really real.
Oh, very much so. I've only had a few dreams that I can remember that vividly. There was one from childhood, there's this one. And I did feel like that there was some sort of a message in the threes and possibly the Trinity. I I didn't n- I didn't as
Mhm,
far as demonic, I don't I don't know. It did feel like something that I've never encountered before. I felt it was evil.
mhm,
And the way that it's like it was really weird too, because it's like we went from sitting at the table all of a sudden to in the bedroom. I can remember to the left of the table, it was almost like a black void in that part of the bedroom, like a black void, like a black hole, I guess you would say.
mhm.
This thing comes out of it with the cross. He has it wielded in such a way that he was holding the shorter end of the cross, which would make it look like a sword, which is how he was lunging at me. And, at that point, if I didn't know he was bad, I probably figured it out by then. But, to lunge back at him, and all of a sudden, we're outside and I'm following him. Obviously he wants me to follow him. Why I'm following him, I have no idea. But to encounter the three things, I that did really cross my mind, the Trinity. It also, I made the connection. I have three children.
Mhm.
That really bothered me, but I don't think it had anything to do with it. I think I felt like it was the Trinity, and I think it was a mockery,
Mhm.
is the way that I felt about it.
Shanna, I was looking through some of my emails and I'm trying to find the sketch that you're mentioning about this particular entity, and I haven't found it yet, but I'm of course trying to also pay attention to you guys chatting, so I'm not putting my full focus on that, but I'm going to try to find that. I'm assuming it was through email, and find that sketch.
It may be on Drive. I had deleted it from my phone because, to be quite honest with you, I couldn't stand looking at it. I didn't want to look at it. It just felt like if I looked at it, it brought it back. So, I don't usually sketch what I see because I don't want to make it give it any life, I guess, if that makes any sense. But, that one I had deleted. Mm. I might be able to find it, but I doubt it. We will see.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the fact that after your father's passing, which was, I mean, really quite recent in the scheme of things, that your house has been much more quiet.
Yes. Yes. The 3 weeks prior to his passing, it was getting insane again. I don't think I kept any notes about it, but there were a whole lot of banging noises. I started to see shadows again. I'm trying to think, maybe I did put something down. The cat, Debbie and I have talked about this too, is that, we've said prior, animals are great. They know. I mean, if something happens and I'm doubting myself and I watch the cat, it removes all doubt at that point.
Yeah, they watch. They watch. They react and they watch something you can't see all the time.
Probably being touched was a big thing. And, the weeks prior to his death, Debbie and I have talked about this too. I think we both sleep like burritos
We
or
do.
mummies. We, completely wrapped up. I have like one little hole for my nose is that so I can breathe. But, being touched, the lights were absolutely insane, which you've heard me talk about the lights before in here. Absolutely insane. And, looking at the patterns back, last spring we had spent $1,000 to make sure that these lights, the electrical system in the house was okay. They were absolutely insane. Well, now all of a sudden they're fine. This happened not too long ago, but since the death, there has been very little. I mean, going on in here. Yeah, maybe a little knock or a bump, but it's not anything that I could not explain away or did explain away. I don't fear going from room to room. I don't have beetles crawling all over the house, which is another story that Roy and Tina could probably explain. I just don't have that fearful feeling walking from room to room that I did before. Yeah, we've got little annoying things going on. It sounds like something's hitting the window with pebbles or, a thud on the side of the house. But it's not anything that I could not explain rationally. This totally different feeling right now, and it's like I told Shannon. Shannon's mentioned before. I hope it's not just backing it up for reinforcement. But this is a really long stretch of time. Usually we had the cycles of maybe 2 or 3 months it would be quiet, and then all of a sudden all hell would break loose. But this has been a pretty long stretch. It really does make me think about the attachment or the connections or the things that trauma. And I'm sure Debbie probably thinks about that a lot too. But
these things generally, I'm just doing something completely different, and it's like a jump scare every single time. I tend to sort of have maybe 2 weeks where nothing happens, and then it starts building up again, and there's different things happening all the time, and things I've never ever experienced happening all the time. And it's like things are developing. It's been several months of things developing and more things happening. I'm very, very, very calm about the entire lot. I don't know why, and I shouldn't be, but I am. And I just have this inner calmness that no, it's fine. It's all going to be fine. And whatever, if there's something nasty, it doesn't matter because light always wins against dark. And I don't know where it comes from. I've had all these things just almost like downloading into my brain. I think I messaged about, so I did some Reiki attunement just to try and control it all because it was getting really random and really like in your face. There was knocks everywhere, there was figures, there was, we would have like owls outside the window there, everything. So I thought, okay, is it because I have no idea what I'm doing? Because I generally don't most of the time have any idea what I'm doing. So I'll go and learn some Reiki and have the first level of attunement to see whether I can control what I'm doing. So I went and did the training, and first of all had to learn how to close down the energy because it was just like apparently bouncing off the walls and everything. There was the most profound, what the actual F session at the last moment where we were practicing on one another all the time, and then for the final sort of like full Reiki session that we were doing, I had one of the instructors, and fine, okay, I did him, and then he had to do me, and it was sort of like 3/4 of an hour of just my mind opening. I could see the Earth, I could see another planet, I could see other life forms, I could see how to get between galaxies, I could see infinity, I could see how to do things, I could see what was important. It was like an absolute information download, and it's been slightly off the wall since then. And you just think, did I make a mistake or not? Because I'm not entirely sure. And that's triggered off some other things. Like I think I said on the Discord about the watchers. I asked a question about watchers because we also, I go all the way around the country to go to different things for work. And we were up in Glasgow in March, and driving back from Glasgow in the evening. And again, we were having a random conversation about what was the best Haribo and what was the worst Haribo and which was your favourite. And all of a sudden, on the hillside up in the Lake District, there were these three cloaked figures watching us and trying to push the van off the high road. And which is why I asked in Discord, because I mentioned to somebody and they said, oh yeah, I think you saw the Watchers. And so I asked what they were. I have no idea. I have no idea what any of these things are most of the time.
Cloaked figures? Did you say cloaked figures?
Cloaked. Yeah.
At the farm, I mean, I know this was before that I met you. At the farm, I woke up one night and there were 4 cloaked figures.
What?
One in each corner of the bedroom. I do remember that. They were very dark.
Yeah.
But the placement, one at each corner of the bedroom, and watchers, I feel like we're being watched constantly. As a matter of fact, I've had to do a little bit of research about watchers here lately. When the activity started to ramp up before Dad, I just felt like, we were being watched. I tend to think that from the backyard, the wood line, the tree line, that we are watched. And that's, I hear about, the cryptids and things like that. And for the longest time, I didn't really, I know now that we had experiences with Bigfoot at the farm. I know that. When I put everything together, I know that. I've never heard of anything as far as the town. I don't know if that would happen here, other than to say that we live in a subdivision on the edge of town. We have a very small greenway here in the backyard. Just a few yards from that greenway over the hill is a railroad, and I've heard those things. But aside from that, I do have to wonder, it feels like we have watchers. I've taken some really odd looking photographs back here in rapid succession when I'm trying to take pictures of the birds to catch them mid-flight. I've taken some pictures of some really, really odd things. They feel like watchers. So it's really funny that you talk about the watchers. I've seen these things, I don't think in this house, but I did see them in the other. But that's when you brought that up, that triggered that memory.
Just really quickly before I lose this point, Shanna, it's been quiet. However, you text me about, and listen, we had this conversation. Was this something strange or was it not something strange? However, talking about that greenway and your backyard, and yes, it's been quiet, but what did you see? Was it last week of an odd person, we're assuming, holding something very strange, but you also almost did something very strange. Can you at least run through that?
As far as me doing something strange, I'm really gonna have to think, because that's constant. I mean, that's constant.
Yeah, but even Jim was like, "What the heck are you doing, woman? We don't do such things this day and age." So yeah, it's kind of one of those things. We're not saying, we're just gonna put it out there, right?
Yeah. Okay. I was actually, I got up and I have this routine. I have to get up and I drink like 2 glasses of water in the morning. I'm always sitting on the same spot in the couch and I'm looking out the window. We have this big window and I always watch the birds and the squirrels back there because, we feed the birds and squirrels and that's just what I do. And they come to the window and watch me because I'm a weirdo. But I'm actually looking at the backyard. Okay. And here comes this guy walking through the backyard, the middle of the backyard, carrying a stuffed giraffe.
What?
And it is like huge. The giraffe, I asked Jim, I said, how big was that? He said, that guy is huge. He is huge. Of course, we're like hobbit people. I mean, everybody is huge to us, but still, this guy he estimated about 6'5" or taller. He was carrying a giraffe. That giraffe had to be 5 feet tall. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, am I imagining? I mean, is this really happening? It reminded me of like some Shining thing. It felt like The Shining or American Horror Story or something. And it just, I can't place that. I got up and I wanted to see, where he goes. And then I get the urge. I told Jim, a storm was blowing up is what was happening. Before, as he was crossing the yard, we were getting ready to have a severe storm. And I felt bad for him because he was in the weather. So I'm running to the door and I'm like, Jim, we should let him in. I mean, we need to let him in. And Jim's like, no, you are not letting him in. We don't, you never can tell who you're going to invite in. But the compulsion to do that was so strong. It didn't matter to me at the time whether I knew him or not. And go figure. I mean, that's, we're these little,
No.
yeah. And we're going to let this guy in who could use us as back scrubbers, basically.
Debbie, isn't that so freaking strange and scary at the same time? This random dude with this huge stuffed giraffe, like where the hell did he get it? Why is he walking with it in the middle of a storm? And this compulsion she has to let him in. Not only question, why are you walking through my backyard? Let's let him in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really didn't think about that until you brought it up. And actually, when I was standing there, and of course, Jim's the voice of reason. I'm like, this guy we could not see him. And I mean, I jumped up and ran and we could not see him. We lost sight of him very, very quickly. And Jim said, well, he probably went over into the greenway. I said, Jim, there is a fence there that would have had to have gotten over. He did not go into the greenway. I did not see him do that. And yeah, it was bizarre. I mean, if you could picture it in your mind as, I'm sitting here and this guy's going, I mean, my eyes were like, what?
Did he acknowledge you? Did he look at you?
No, he I couldn't even see his face that well. And I started to think about that too, is that he was feet from the window.
Really?
And I would estimate maybe 15 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And I could not, it was very, very vague. I could not make out, he looked quite normal, but he was very, very big. Man.
I didn't realize that he had come that close. Either that wasn't, you didn't tell me that, or I didn't ask, or I just have forgotten since last week. God bless me.
Yeah.
But I didn't recall that he got that close to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the window, as far as our backyard is only, feet from the very small greenway. It's just maybe, I don't know, 30 feet from that. And then you have the greenway, which is only feet itself, maybe 10, 12 maybe. And then right over that is the railroad. So yeah, he was pretty close to the house. And that's what, it was just really bizarre. I mean, like, who was going to walk through the middle of your backyard with a stuffed giraffe? And, I don't know.
I think they do it to let you know you're being watched.
It was uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable. So maybe I'd have to look back how long ago. Maybe 3-4 weeks ago, I happened to look up and look out of the French doors, and there was a man crouched with his hands pressed against the glass, looking in at me. The house on my own. I was in the house on my own. Okay, and he made eye contact. I blinked and he was gone. Now, where he was crouched down, looking in the glass, I had a row of pots which I just put down there at winter because they were like plants I wanted to overwinter. So he would have been sat in the pots. So he, he's obviously not a real person. And then he scared the life out of me because I think it was the same day I went upstairs into the like my bedroom and for something, and I looked out of the bedroom window and he walked past the bedroom window
Oh.
and looked at me, turned his head and looked at me and smiled. But he walked sort of like in the garden at the back, but he was at first floor level. So he was walking on nothing.
Oh.
And I had to go and sit in the ensuite in the dark for about half an hour before I could pluck up courage to come out. I was like, I don't really like this because I'm in the house on my own.
That floating thing. I mean, when she told me that, I was just like, no, nothing floating, nothing. Yeah.
Okay, but
So
now we've uncovered another thing that has gone on recently for both of you. And I look back through the text messages, Shanna, and it was Tuesday, April 2nd, that you text me about this strange homie just chilling, walking through your backyard with the giraffe. I don't know, Debbie, if you recall, of course, what day you saw this absolutely effing creepy dude looking through the window. Screw that, by the way.
I would to look back.
Hey, Shanna, don't you think that okay, just real quick. Did he have on, this is for Shanna, did he have on a hoodie, a hat, anything covering his head or his face?
No, and that's,
I mean, so don't you think that that's strange that to you, his face is quite nondescript, that you can't really, like, you are a very talented artist. Do you feel like you could sit down and sketch his face?
no. No.
That's weird, right? I mean, considering he's 15 feet away in your own backyard.
Exactly. And his face was very vague. I mean, as far as features, you would think that I would have seen the features. It would have been, but no, I could not sketch his face. No, it was very strange.
I'm starting to rethink our initial, because we kind of were texting back and forth, and it's funny, and we're laughing, but I'm rethinking our assessment that was just some, random strange guy that maybe got off an all-night bender of God knows what. I don't think that was a normal thing at all.
Yeah, and this area back here in the backyard, my daughter moved in about 1.5 years ago, and she would come in the house. She would go outside and smoke or whatever it is that she was doing, and she would come back in, and she would say, "Mom, there are figures moving back there in that greenway." And I'd be like, I don't know, Carrie. It could be, someone that's homeless or whatever, but you should be okay. She told me once that she saw lights coming down from the sky, that she saw blue mist back there, and I'm just like, of course, that place back there is so creepy at nighttime, I won't go out. But, the dog refused to go out there at nighttime a lot. We would have to, like, drag him out of the house to go. But I did on security camera, and I've sent Debbie a whole lot of stuff from the security cameras, but I have actually captured what looks to be a blue mist. As far as lights, that area out there, like I said, we've captured, I don't know what it was. I captured something on the security camera last week. It looks, I don't know if it's a flashlight going over the ground. I don't know what it is. It's crazy. I've had, this guy it's nuts. And both Roy and Tina have said there are lots of things going on. You have lots of stuff back there. And, Bigfoot activity, you mentioned some other things. I've actually, and which brings me to another point, and I will digress. I think it was after the chat that we had, as far as lights and things and weird things happening outside and in the yard. I woke up one night, assuming I woke up and I was not dreaming, which it did not feel like I was dreaming again. The light in the bedroom window was blinding. It was covering the whole window. The window's pretty big, blinding light. And then I had another incident like that where there was blinding light in the window, but there were entities of some sort in the room with me. It was a group. I could not make them out. They were backlit through the light. I really don't know what they were. I was confused, but all I remember was the compulsion to rebuke them. You have to rebuke them. And so I did. In the name of Christ, I rebuked them and they disappeared. It was the strangest thing. But it's all that, I think, this craziness in the backyard, you know.
So that was after our last chat with the free will healing ladies as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I think I told you this, Shannon, didn't I, that I had the man in black come that conversation, and he was actually in the bedroom, and he was 2 or 3 days of literally fighting him, and just trying to just trying to get him to go. And one of my things is, if one of these won't go, I'll repeat the Lord's Prayer. And he was trying to make me forget the words of the Lord's Prayer.
Mm-hmm.
You literally grow up with that stuff, so it's like spinal level that comes out. And he was in the corner of the bedroom, and that was the night of the talk we had, and 2 days afterwards. My Fitbit recorded a really, really disturbed night. Heart rate going up, sleep. The sleep was really disturbed. I was awake for a lot of the time during the night. So that is almost, I was doing something at that point to try and get rid of him.
And I remember when you and I were discussing that horrific hat man, shadow man, I had told you at the time that I was having a shadow entity that was rising up from the foot of the bed at nighttime. And black on black, it reminded me of the time in the hallway when I had that huge thing basically blow me over. I was looking right at it. But the ones at the foot of the bed, I do recall that one of them actually looked like that it had a hat on.
Yeah.
It moved fast enough from the end of the bed. I mean, it was pretty fast, but I still looked dead on and saw it. It did look like a hat. It had a hat on it. Now, I don't, other than what you would call the watchers, I don't know that I've ever seen an entity with a hat until that point.
Yeah, I've only seen them twice, but recently, in the last 6-9 months, once at home, and it was how people describe a classic hat man, man in black with a hat, walk across the doorway. And then once at work, where I happened to be doing something where I could see down the entire length of the building, and he walked across the corridor, and it was an absolute silhouette of a man in black with a hat on, shadow figure. So I think these things are around us and watching us all the time.
Debbie, I have a question about the crouched creeper thing, guy, whatever. Is that the same side of the house with the window that you won't look out of?
Yes.
No way. Oh my goodness.
So that's where so that French doors. So we've got, it's the room where I work from home in. So usually behind me is the window that I won't look out of, that I saw. I've seen lots of things out of that window, and I don't like looking out of it. And it's also where the stream goes under the house. by that window, and then on another wall of the same room is their French doors. That's where I could see the man in black on next door's driveway, and also we quite often get I quite often see figures coming down the stairs, and so there's steps down to our front door, and you can see figures go down to the front door. I've gone to the front door on numerous occasions and no one's there, and if you come down the steps then you hit gravel, and so you could hear someone, and you never do. You never see anybody. They are full, figures of people, usually the same couple. There's one in a white shirt and there's one in a green jumper. Sometimes there's also like black, almost like a black dog or a black like animal of some sort that does the same thing, and it's probably a bit smaller than a Labrador, that one.
Here's what's kind of blowing my mind personally right now, just because the fact there's already been so many things that are so similar with you guys, and it wasn't last week, it was the week prior that Shanna texted me about this weird homie with the freaking giraffe in a storm. It was 2 weeks ago. And now Debbie's going, yeah, I had this weird guy that doesn't even touch the ground, crouched outside of outside the house with his hands on the glass. I'm like, oh my God. This is, okay. Let's see what else we can find, okay? Because this is what happens when we hop on these calls. Is we just kind of start yapping and talking and things come out. Debbie, what are some of the other... And of course, the homie crouched outside the house definitely fits this MO. But I'm trying to just let's dig up some other things if they're there. Not trying to make automatic connections. I think that these kinds of talks, just these things come out. So what are some of the other things maybe that have occurred? You kind of mentioned jump scares, and I think that it would take a lot for you, especially to, I mean, both of you guys are pretty used to this, but me, who is not used to this, a jump scare for me would be a lot lower level than it would be for you guys. You mentioned jump scares specifically. So tell me what kinds of things have happened as of recently just being maybe since the last time we've really had a good discussion about this, over the phone, quote unquote phone. What are some things that have happened that have you would quantify as that?
Okay, so we were having a discussion on the Discord thing. One of the other members, his mother was having a problem with, she could see this horrible entity thing in her house, and he was having somebody to come and cleanse the house and bless the house, and if anyone was available, could they just pray at the same time. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that, that's fine. So did that, and at that time I happened to stand up and glance out of the window I never look out of, by the way. So it was that window. I can't even describe it. It was like halfway between an insect and an alien and something. Just literally, I could see a banister, and it had hold of the banister and it leered, and it got really close to the glass. It made me jump back. So I was obviously channeling or could remote view what was going on in his house. That was a big jump scare. I didn't like that. I don't like when you get touched. I don't like... So that's why I tend to sleep. I'll either be a burrito, or if I get too hot, I really will honestly be a burrito. There's nothing like no. My feet are never uncovered, because I've had we had a heat wave a couple of years ago, and I happened to be just like, I had my foot hanging over the edge of the bed reading a book. So we hadn't been asleep, we'd just gone to bed. I had my foot hanging over the side of the bed, and I had my ankle grabbed from under the bed, and you could feel a hand go round the ankle.
Mm.
That was like no. I've also had my hands stroked, so my hands are always covered up, so they're always tucked under the duvet. I don't like, so we have both at home and at work, we have this thing that I call true night, because I don't know how else to describe it. There seems to be no rhyme or reason or why this happens, or time of year, time of day, but it will be after dark, and it's almost like there is a blanketing silence. Light doesn't penetrate. So you can have, if I'm at work, you can turn your car headlights on to go home, and the car headlights will go maybe 2 foot, if that. You can walk out with a torch or your phone on, and it just swallows the light, and it swallows and deadens sound. That same thing happens at night, and it almost feels like it's pressing against the windows in the house. And I had a thing, this was maybe November, where there were 2 evenings of that in the house, and there was a sound of cawing, like like a rook or a crow or something, almost the other side of the glass. You couldn't see anything apart from black. There was nothing, and it was almost as though it wanted to get me outside, and I just wouldn't. I didn't like that. That was a jump scare in the middle of nothing. And sometimes as well, when that happens, you get that clicky, like predator type clicky sound. That makes me scared and makes me jump. Otherwise, it's just when I'm not expecting. So, like, I wasn't expecting these figures on the hillside. I wasn't expecting this shouting from my father. I wasn't expecting, my hands to be stroked, or, like my hair to be tugged if I'm out, or a sudden noise when I know I'm the only one in the house and there's nothing else, and I hear walking or footsteps or things like that, and then I walk towards it to find out what it is. That's the problem. I walk towards these things.
Well, that's how you like to operate. That's you handle business. You both do. So, you're like, let's go, MFer. You're here. Let's do this thing. So, after you see the crouched guy outside the window, what's your normal protocol for that? Do you choose to just act like, okay, didn't see that? I mean, unless you're going towards it if you feel like you need to, but do you pray? Do you meditate? What's your protocol for that kind of a thing?
I think on that occasion, it was the middle of the day. It was bright sunshine. It was 10, 11 o'clock at night during the day. I just happened to look up, saw him, blinked. He wasn't there. Took a couple of moments to go, okay, did I just see what I just saw? And then I went outside to investigate to see whether I could see anyone and who was there and how could he possibly be there. Measured where he would be, had a look where he would be. He would be sat through the plant pots, and these are big pots of stuff. He would be sat through them. There was no disturbance anywhere. I couldn't hear any sound. There was nobody in the garden. Nobody had gone out. And to get from where I saw him to the door to go outside is maybe 10 steps. So I go and investigate and see whether I can work it out. And then when I can't, I will, depends what mood I'm in. So if I'm, feeling like we've had a lot of activity, I will just go back inside. If I'm in the middle of doing something and it's disturbed me, I might just say F you and turn around and walk out. I will challenge, and that's probably why sometimes they try it on.
I mean, the sound of the cawing outside the windows. You both have had a lot of experiences with birds and owls and things like that, and them tying into things. I mean, look at Shanna's dream or astral projection, whatever that was, with the three birds. One of them was yellow, bright yellow. What were the other two, Shanna?
It was really odd because I don't recall a color. I really don't.
Besides that one, yeah.
Besides that one, and I don't know what the significance of that would have been, but I don't really recall a color. It's just like everything outside the house was dead, with the exception of the little yellow bird. So.
But the other two birds were alive, or they were dead?
They were alive.
Okay.
But it's like, well, I guess I'm thinking artsy. Just mainly, shades of gray, black and white. I mean, grayscale.
Mm-hmm.
Everything except for the little yellow bird. And it was the best that I can remember. I mean, anything outside of the house on the landscape was like that. Yeah, it's definitely odd. The birds, the owls.
Debbie has mentioned owls too. Can we talk about, Shanna, the owl clock?
Yes. Several years ago, I think I actually had it in the first house. My father had given me an old clock. It was an old cuckoo clock in the shape of an owl. He had actually, for some reason, painted it black. I don't know if that was its original color or not, but he had actually painted it black. And I really didn't want it, to be honest with you, but he was kind of insistent that I take it, so I took it. I never hung it up. It was either in the attic, which, come to think of it, at the time, I told Jim, I said, when we were talking about this stuff, I said, I said, that owl was in the attic when I saw whatever it was that I saw up there. But we had actually, I think we kept it in the building out at the farm. I really didn't want it in the house. I just had just this repulsion of it. But I remember in the chat, Laura had told me to go into the garage and look for a glass bottle. And I couldn't recall a glass bottle or anything down there that would have had any significance. So I went down there, was looking for the glass bottle, looked up on the shelves, and there was the owl clock. Now, the problem with that is that prior to that, we had we had taken that owl clock to Goodwill. Me being myself, and fully realizing, my limitations, I came back in and I looked at Jim and I said, we took that owl clock to Goodwill, did we not? And he said, yes. I said, I remember that because I remember carrying it out in a white clothes basket. That's how I remember that. We took it. And I look up and there's that thing sitting on the shelf. So a little bit freaked out at that time. I think at that time Roy had suggested to get an EMF meter detector, whatever. We had actually went around the house and swept the house. Didn't find anything really out of the ordinary until we come to that clock. And it triggers it. So I just want the owl out of the house. And we talked to Roy. Roy said, send it down. So I packaged it up, sent it to Roy. Roy said, well, make sure you give me a tracking number because I definitely don't want this thing going past the boards. So as it turns out, according to Roy, when he brought it in, there was something in that box with that owl. It was either on the owl, in the owl, whatever. And he had to put a protective circle around it. He actually talked to Tina. They had to talk to other people. They had to consult, I guess, with other people to remove it. I think a Native American shaman actually was the one who removed it. She had to wait until, quote, she said it was not looking. But according to what Roy said, that there was something inserted in it that was made by the demonic and was inserted into the clock. That's another, connection, owls and my father. Yeah, it's Not a good experience with an owl.
Do you know if
I didn't get to tell you this. I'm so sorry. And it slipped my mind. Last week, outside of this house, in practically sitting on the edge of the city, I could literally walk to town. I'm sitting there the other night. I don't know if this is like the herald of what's to come. I hope not. But I was actually sitting, and it was nighttime, and I heard an owl back here. Now, what the chances are of me hearing an owl back here, I don't know. I have not heard. We've been here going on 3 years, and I have never heard an owl here. Never. And it was a very loud owl, and it sounded like an owl mimicry. It did not sound like an actual owl. But it was, it really got my attention. So I don't think that I had actually told you about that. But yeah, I'm sorry.
The not owls, don't sound like owls. They sound like mimicry.
Mm-hmm.
At that where we've had the true night thing at home, and up in our bedroom, up in my bedroom, is on the same side of the house as that window that I won't look out of. It sounded like an owl sat above the bedroom window, and also right outside the glass. And then when I did look, all you could see was black. You couldn't see anything. And they don't sound like normal owls. And we live in the country, and so we've got a lot of owls. We've got barn owls and tawny owls. So you hear the screeching and the twitch-wooing. They don't sound like proper owls.
Yeah, definitely not an owl. It just sounded like a human or something else trying to mimic an owl.
Did you go inside pretty quick after that?
I was already inside. I had the urge to go out and look, and I thought, no, that's probably not the best idea. So it really, really caught me off guard. It did, because like I said, we just don't hear that here. We're, almost in the city.
Do you know if Roy has, because I know when he first received the owl clock, that he didn't take it inside the house at first. Do you know where is the owl now? Does he still have it? Is it in the house? Did he get rid of it now that this thing is not actually part of the owl?
I'm not really sure. I haven't really asked him about it. Do you remember him saying anything about the owl?
No.
So we don't know if, maybe I want to check on that owl and see what's doing, and see if they have actually separated that maybe possibly demonic entity from it. And, we've talked a lot about your dad and his insistence on you taking it and keeping it, your reticence to do so, your repulsion is the word that you use, and the fact that you took it goodwill and it ended up back in the damn garage is so much nope. It's astonishing.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think I sent you the picture of it. It's obviously very old. I've talked about my father. He would tinker with clocks. He basically would work on clocks and things like that. And I've often, it reminded me of Insidious, where the demon or whatever it is behind the red door was up there, whatever he was doing. It kind of reminded me of that. But yeah, I just had a real repulsion of that clock. I wouldn't hang it up. I didn't want to see it. I put it in the attic.
Do we have you, Shanna? Oh, it cut you off a little bit there. Yeah, so you yeah, go ahead.
It feels like he gave it to me deliberately.
Yeah, absolutely. And at some point I don't even recall, I don't even know if I could do this again, but I actually found one for sale, like on an eBay or something, and it was the exact same owl clock. Now, of course, just because it was the exact same owl clock doesn't mean that if any of us bought it, there would be something attached. I don't think that at all. I found it cool because I did find at least that very same owl clock, but there wasn't beyond, I think, who crafted the clock, there wasn't a whole lot of information, about original origins or anything like that. It didn't go much further than that.
I think if I recall correctly, I think he said it was German. It was
I'm
Germany.
thinking Black Forest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, you're talking about the owl clock, and I can picture it. Was it really dark wood, and it had an owl on it, and like little pine cones and things?
It was actually this clock was extremely odd, because you see your typical cuckoo clock or a clock that had an owl. The clock itself was an owl,
and the eyes went backwards and forwards.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
Exactly the one you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. The entire clock was an owl.
Yeah, I know exactly the sort you mean. And I think they're German Black Forest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and for your dad to choose to just paint the whole thing black anyway, just is, I mean, what a perfect, essentially blanket statement for pretty much everything that he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. He, it definitely a blanket statement for him. And he, the last time that I actually saw him or spoke to him, his eyes were not right. He was basically what you would call, he was conscious, but he was unresponsive. My sister is a registered nurse, and she said she had never seen anything like it. The doctors didn't know what was going on. He would look at you, and it's like he was looking through you. Yeah, it just, of course I have a lot of questions about that situation, but that's the owl thing. We dealt with some owl things at the farm. Again, I don't think that they were really owls when I think about it, but yeah, that owl, I think I have a picture of it maybe that I sent to Shannon, but as far as looking at it, I can't even look at the picture. It gives me the creeps. So,
Debbie, are you still seeing the black cat and the tabby cat that essentially mimic and interact with your actual cats?
I think I last saw it as a black cat about 2 days ago, and then saw it as a tabby on Sunday.
But never at the same time?
No, it's either one or the other. It's not the same. It depends what I think we're doing, or what. So if it was really fascinated by the tabby cats when they arrived, the tabby kittens, which is why I think it started to be a tabby, and it tries to blend in. So I saw it as a black cat coming out of the bathroom downstairs. I almost tripped over it, and then it disappears. So you see it, and you see it walk, and it disappears as it walks, or it goes into something solid. So you can't. It's not actually physically there. I think it's just fascinated with everybody in the house. It's not threatening. The cats don't seem bothered by it at all. It's just part of the house, and I just get the feeling that it's really interested and enjoys being here.
I was going to tell you a few minutes ago, it was really weird because I was concentrating on what Debbie was saying and concentrating more on that, but kind of became aware to the right. It felt like that the cat was in here. I could see movement and moving around, and just assumed that he was in here because he comes in here a lot. He loves the art room. He was not in here. The door was shut. He was outside of the door. So I don't know what that is, but yeah, I was convinced that the cat was in here rummaging around in the room, which I would rather he not do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, Vay. See, now this is what you already know what I'm going to say. This is what I was afraid of, and considering what we've been talking about, it doesn't sound like it's calmed down for either one of these ladies that much, but it actually has, if you've listened to their other episodes. I would say especially for Shanna, But this is what I was afraid of, because we're actually on the call, and I was like, Shanna, I don't know, should we be talking about this? It's been so quiet for you guys, comparatively so. And now look, we're even just on the call still, and you thought that your little kitty cat was in the art room, and he is not.
Well, and I have to apologize, guys. I'm moving around, and I probably even shouldn't say this on a podcast, but it was an emergency. Jim was dealing with cat diarrhea, so I, I am in territory that I have never been in before. So, well, I will say this: as far as the paranormal, we still have that. I think you're right that Debbie and I have just gotten used to a certain level of craziness. For me, it has been personal. Like, and I've always heard, Keith would always say, it's not just the scares. You're going to experience things in your personal life. Things are going to be affected. They're going to try to interfere with everything. If they can't get you on a scare, if they can't get to you that way, then they will affect your relationships, your job, your finances, whatever that is. And it seems like that we have entered another period of that, including my health. And, to me, it may be a stretch to connect those things, but I do see the pattern. Because at the farm, when some of the activity would die down, then the personal stuff started in a really, and I can only look at the pattern, but, we do have some things go on, not nearly, I hear the sounds, I hear the growling, or, like I said, I don't usually pay that much attention to it now unless the cat reacts to it. It's just
It just becomes every day. So you get used to hearing the footsteps, don't you, on the thumps and bangs,
yes.
and seeing the figures. You get used to it.
Mhm.
I completely agree with you that it's sort of like you're almost on a journey of these things happening. It's really strange how connected it all is, and how things will spark off one another. It's almost as though they want you to see so much, but not everything.
Mhm. Yep.
Shanna, has Fergus had terrible diarrhea like this before?
No, I have never I've never had a cat. And like I'm going in here, and I went to get a drink, and Jim said, I have he actually mouthed it. That's why I was so much noise. He said that he is like, yeah, I mean, I have never had this problem with him. Never. And there's no reason to, because I give him the things that would prevent him from having it. And, he has the fiber in his food and the probiotic, and
He probably eats the same thing every day,
he
etc.,
eats the same
etc.
thing every day. He does not have access to anything that would make him sick.
He's not an outdoor cat. I know that. He stays inside with you guys. So it's strange timing at the very least.
I think that he is harassed sometimes. I mean, when we have activity, I told you, and I don't know if you remember me telling you a few months ago when we first got him, it sounded like something was abusing him in the living room or in the hallway. It just, the yowling and the screeching, and it sounded like he was being maybe thrown somewhat against a wall. And I would tell Jim, and he would say, well, he's just playing. He's just playing. He likes to play. Well, we don't have that anymore. Not really. Here lately, none of that. He comes in and he's fine. None of the yowling, none of the crazy activity. Of course, we've never had a cat. This is the first time we've ever had a cat. So we just thought, cats are derpy. They're going to do crazy things. But knowing the way that he behaves now and the way that he was then, it really, really makes me wonder, because I remember telling Jim at the time, Jim, I just feel like something is tormenting him. Something is tormenting him. Now, I have had instances. Fergus follows me to the bathroom. He is with me when I shower. He is right there at the tub, and the bathroom has always been an area where I felt vulnerable. Go figure, a cat doesn't usually want to be anywhere near a shower where there would be water, but he is right there. One evening I'm getting ready to shower. He's actually standing there outside the shower, outside the door. He turns around, looks down the hallway. Something's gotten his attention. He is kind of following something. I see his head moving back and forth. And then all of a sudden, he wheels around, does a 180, and he takes a flying leap into the bathtub. The water's not on, but still, yet he knows that the shower is where the water comes from. But he jumps, he makes a flying leap into that bathtub, and then even wheels around, does another 180. His back's kind of humped up, and he is looking toward the direction of the door. So, yeah, I think that
he's more scared of what's out there than the water.
Yeah, exactly. And Jim always calls him my protector, because, he follows me around. We have this really weird relationship, Fergus and I do. It's kind of like in Grumpy Old Men, but he really does. He follows me around and watches what I do. If I'm in here in the art room, he has a blanket on the table. He likes to lie on the table while I'm working. But yeah, I tell you what really freaks me out. Debbie, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Is when you're sitting there, and Fergus has a cat tree. He likes to sit on the very top, and he will look above my head. Obviously, he is looking above my head, and then his eyes dilate. He looks like, and they get so dark, and he looks like it's almost like he's going into his predator mode or something. He sees something that is threatening to him, and he's becoming defensive, or he is getting. I've noticed him. It freaks me out, to be quite honest with you, because it's like his eyes change. But I was wondering, have you noticed anything like that for your cats? Is that typical behavior, or?
It's not typical behavior for a cat, but we have, especially Barney, he does that when he sees something outside. So outside where we have all the activity, he will spot something and he will look like that.
Yeah, Fergus will go to the windows, and he acts as if he knows that something is out there.
Yeah. And they will, so if I open the door, they will not refuse to go out. If it's, bright sunshine or whatever, they will refuse to go out. They will see something through the window and just refuse. Absolutely. And I can't see a thing. I really can't. I hear noises sometimes out there as well. So when was that? That was about a year ago. So I have said we've got steps down and then gravel, and I was actually out sort of weeding things, and I could hear the gravel crunching like footsteps, and there was nobody there. And that freaked me out a little bit. But it's almost like you're being steered from what you were saying, that it will affect different things and different, like financial health, pets, whatever, to stop you doing something. And I literally had that for years and years and years. So that I could not, up until about 4 or 5 years ago, even watch the opening credits or read the back cover of a book about UFOs, because I would be warned off. So I would up to and including nearly losing the house, because I thought, "Oh, no, why? I'm just like, I would test it all the time, and I would be warned off by things happening, and then it just completely changed. I could binge watch whatever I wanted now. It's almost like, no, you can't do that. We're not. There's something aware of what you're doing, and almost like directing you or stopping you.
Debbie, have you
It's
walked down the path recently?
Yes,
Really?
yes, on Sunday. So, and this was really, really, really weird. So we've had lots and lots of rain here, and it's really muddy, and there's standing puddles, like 2 or 3 inches deep puddles in various places. So we went for the usual sort of walk on Sunday, and this has never, ever, ever happened on that path before. So I happen to have a stick with me, and I've been using a stick because it's been so muddy. I slid down a hillside in the mud and pulled all the muscles in one hip a couple of weeks ago. And so it's really been like, ow, I just like my butt really hurts. So because it's all just like sore. So I was using a stick, and I've used a stick before on this path, and nothing happened. It just was like a stick. Exactly the same stick, exactly the same path. This time on Sunday, walking down the path, every single time the stick hit the ground, there was a vibration, and it sounded like a bell ringing all the way down the path, at the beginning of the path to the end of the path. The moment we left the path and it opens out onto a field, the ringing sound stopped. It carried on going through puddles, mud, and not mud. Absolutely weird. Can't explain it.
Yeah, that's absolutely strange considering all the other things that have gone on down that path. But that is unique. It's so different than anything else that's occurred there.
It's almost like it was energizing it, or it was opening up for something. And I got my husband, because I was walking with my husband, I got him at the end to take the stick and to walk back in. And we walked back in, and I said, "Can you feel that?" And he was like, "Yeah, I can feel that. That's vibrating." Yeah. And the stick was vibrating as it was hitting the ground.
And he could hear the bell ringing as well?
He couldn't hear the bell ringing, but it
Wow.
was that I could, but there was this fight. You could feel it. You could feel it going in your arm. This vibration on the ground. Weird, absolutely. And there's been more sort of like FRAY things going on there. Yeah, it's been that goes through waves of being really active and not active. And it had been fairly quiet, so now it's going active again. And I think almost like that bell ringing thing was it being active again.
I don't know if you even want to talk about it because especially when it comes to the Fae, that can definitely activate things to talk about it. So if so, you just tell me, nope, not going there. What you mentioned other Fae type of things. Did you want to just bring those up just as bullet points?
Okay, but I don't mind talking about it, because it's just, if I talk about it, it happens. If I don't talk about it, it happens. So I haven't been back to the path since then, because I think it will be quite active, and I will go back and we'll see what it's like. I might leave it a couple of weeks. We've had things, so you go down the path, and then the walk goes round in a big loop, and there's a little sort of like copse just off the path, and walking past that, I have had my name called. That was probably 2 weeks ago, and my husband heard the tail end of my name being called, and we could see like a little black shape in the trees. He also, maybe, was it the same weekend or might have been the week before, they tried to really mess about with him. So I could hear giggling at the same time this was happening. He had an awful headache, and the pressure on his head was getting worse and worse and worse as he walked past, so much so that he was staggering, and he was really having trouble almost moving. It was like they were just playing with him. So had that happen on that bit. Sometimes I have actually had my face stroked as well on there. I'm trying to think of all the, because I've been writing everything that's happening and has happened down, and it's about nearly 16,000 words now.
Yeah, you're on your way to writing a full book, basically.
But
I mean,
this is just bullet points.
right. And might I say that, the stick hitting the ground, and both of you are perceiving the vibration, but only you perceiving the bell ringing at the same time is not the first time something like that has happened. There's been many instances for you, Debbie, where I know that you or your husband will hear or see something. I think one of your kids could see something at one point that you could not, or that all the time they or you or your husband always can see or hear, and no one else can ever see or hear.
I most of the time it's at least two of us could see or hear different things
Right.
at the same time. And I think that is almost like, some people can see magic pictures, or people have got perfect pitch. I think that's more, what you're tuned into and what you can see. There may be a whole heap of things that I can't see, and there's, I can see 10% of what's there, and my daughter could hear 10%, and then occasionally we could both see a little bit of whatever's going on. And I think it's just something like that you have this ability to see
Right.
beyond the normal world.
Well, whatever you two are tuned into is definitely very unique to you and your families, whether that be bad or good, but it's
Mhm.
definitely a lot different than, say my house, which is definitely a lot quieter. I mean, that's what I was saying earlier. Like what you guys deal with on a daily, would even just one of those experiences would then catapult me right back to when I was 12 and seeing these shadow figures that changed my life. And that was all those years ago. And you guys are like, that's a normal Monday for me. Shannon, get your shit together. But okay, so before we sign off on this update show, is there anything else that has come up or that you guys have jotted down in your notes, which is so smart that you guys both keep track of this stuff? I know that you do. Some of it you would rather not have to do, but you execute that anyway. But okay, so is there anything else before we sign off that you both wanted to bring up to compare, or just to mention, or closing thoughts?
I I have to apologize. With what's going on in here right now, I don't know what's going on here right now with whatever that was in the corner, and now the cat's belly obviously is messed up. It just seems like something is trying to get my attention pulled away. It could just be the mundane, but it doesn't feel like it at this point. And I was just looking at my notes, and in January, it was insane. It was insane. And that was like 3 weeks before that he died. Just the noises, the bangs, the knocks, the appearances of things. One of the things that I noticed here that I'd totally forgotten about, that had absolutely, it terrified both me and Jim, We had a couple of instances where at nighttime when we would lie down, it sounded as if something was breaking into the house. It was that loud. It even to the point where it got to the bedroom door. And I actually jumped out of bed and was going for the gun. It was that loud and that obvious. And we had never, that I recall, which is really hard to do in the span of we dealt with this, but nothing that violent as far as the knocking, banging, whatever. But we were both, I mean, my heart was racing. We were like, had the guns out. I had the gun drawn. I had, was convinced that something had gotten in the house and was coming through the bedroom door. It was that bad, just to make the point about how crazy it had gotten in the time before that. But no, just the connection with Debbie, and for her to be so far away, and the compulsion to, okay, I need to see what's going on with Debbie. Just that, I don't know if Debbie's probably more than familiar with that compulsion, that feeling.
Yeah, it's weird, the connections, and I feel completely calm. I feel like I'm nowhere near the end of this. I feel like it's almost, it seems strange. It's almost like you don't have to be worried, Shanna. You really don't. I will stand up and whack the shit out of anything that that you, that tries to harm anyone. I just feel that's what I feel like. I just feel that you sometimes have to get in contact with me, and I'm like, no, don't worry, I know, and I just literally know, and it sort of pops in your head at that point,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not anywhere near as afraid as I used to be, with a lot of help from the people in Discord, and you and the people that I'm not anywhere near as afraid as I used to be, because I've gotten an understanding of what I'm dealing with. That was part of the problem, just not understanding and even not accepting what I was dealing with. But I do feel like, I will stand up against it now, where I would not, I had that fear. I
Yeah.
think I'm not sure that we're finished with it. I do think that probably some of the most nefarious parts of it are gone, possibly. But I feel like that, and I've been told many, many times that by Keith and by Tina and Roy, that you are drawing it. You are drawing it in. You have to learn to control this. That Roy once said he was trying to speak to me over the phone, and he was trying to do something with this energy that I have, and he told me that I'd opened the fire hydrant and to calm it down.
Exactly the same, which is why I thought, you know what, I'll do Reiki to try and calm it down. And that's one of the first things they said is like, you are wide open. There is so much energy. And that could be what's drawing the stuff in. It hasn't stopped it at all. It's just opened up another area of things. And people have said things to me, random people that I haven't seen for 8, 9, 10 years. Well, you'll just have a sudden meeting with them, and all these synchronicities, and it's very, very weird. And I've had a few people say what I am, and I don't even know what they mean when they say what I am. That makes sense. I've had people come up to me and say, you're multidimensional, and you're a light being, and you're, and I think, I don't actually know what you're talking about.
Exactly. I've had the same thing happen. People will tell me that I'm this or I'm that, and I really don't understand what that is. I don't understand the terminology, I guess.
Nope. So I have been called a tree guardian, a star seed, a light being, and what was the other one I said? Yeah, and I have no idea multidimensional. I have no idea what these things mean. So that's why I think it's just there's more to come and there's more things to happen. I did it with a local. So I didn't understand the way Reiki worked, but it's all to do with energy, and it was, you have to do a certain amount of training to get to certain levels, and this was the first level of training that I did to try and control.
Gotcha.
And this was when this whole, you know, opening up of the universe, and I'm just thinking, oh, okay, I don't quite know how to deal with this, and I still don't quite know how to deal with it.
Well, ladies, I appreciate you guys coming back on for the update. Of course, this is to be continued, as everyone could probably guess. I'm really crossing fingers and toes that this hasn't stirred anything up, but at least on Shanna's side, she's already telling us while we are recording that it has. So I don't have high hopes that all of a sudden it's just going to be crickets at both of these ladies' homes. So this is to be continued. As I mentioned, Shanna's main episodes 368 and 369. For Debbie, it is 311, 340, and 426. And there's just so much more that we've done over the last few years on the Patreon side with everybody. I wasn't even trying to find all of those to mention, which wouldn't help for the folks that are just on the main side anyway. So there you go. But ladies, thank you so much. We will of course be in touch. Debbie, I hope that since she is over in the UK, it is night time for her. She is probably soon to bed, so she could get up and go to work tomorrow again. And I just hope that it's quiet. Leave Debbie alone, or we're going to kick some ass. Same goes for Shanna's house. Whatever's over there trying to poke and prod her and distract her, screw you, buddy. We're on to you. We know what's up. And yeah, we're going to run at you with our own type of backwards cross, if you will. So don't F with the ladies. Ladies, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.